Welcome everyone, this is Kurtin's channel. Now we are back to our new episodes of True Semi-Running Champions and Comparison, featured by Wild Rift, League of Legends versus the Mobile Legends Bang Gang. But before that, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click the bell icon so you will be notified to our next episode video. Let's do this!
Vygar's story has been regarded by many as the best story of 2018, and for a good reason. Even I would have it really high up on my list, have I had the time to make the list. And don't blame it on me, someone had to bake a Christmas cookie. But after a long wait, we'll finally have a look at the Master of Evil. Vygar's character can be summed up by one of his lines: "I am evil! Stop laughing!" There is no doubt in my mind that the writers tailored his new story around this one line. He wants to be seen as the Master of Evil, while in reality he's as evil as the Sasuke man. Oh, there is no doubt it is evil, but if we ignore it, maybe it will go away. Vygar now has up-to-date bio and a short story that perfectly shows his new personality. And that short story alone is the reason why his lore is so revered now. But Yordles in general got a couple of lines of new lore as well. So let's start with what you can find in Bandle City. As many of you probably know, Bandle City is very well hidden in the spirit realm. Mortals usually have different opinions as to where the entrance to this magical place is. And that's because there isn't just a singular gateway. There are gates to Bandle City spread around Runeterra. This fact is reflected on the map. Every time you refresh the map of Runeterra, Bandle City appears in a different place. And here it is important to note that the map randomly generates where it appears according to a predetermined pattern. In other words, don't take the placing for granted. It's placed on the map randomly. But that's not to say that we don't know about a couple of places where the gateways are. Ezreal saw a gateway leading to Bandle City in the southern Shuriman Mountains, for example. But when he returned there the next day, it was gone. That's because Yordles try to hide their gates from mortals. And only those who can read the Yordle language can open them. 3 of these gates are shown on the map of Runeterra. One is hidden in the woods. One is on the coast of Ionia, because we can link this background to this Ionian image. And then there is a picture of Teemo opening a gate in mountains that remind me of Targon. Part of the base Yordle lore also mentions what it feels like to get there as a mortal. To non-Yordle creatures, Bandle City heightens all of their senses. Colors are brighter, food is unforgettable, sun is eternally golden, and water is crystal clear. But the interesting part is that no two travelers ever agree on what they saw, because Yordles are known for their illusions. So maybe everyone sees something else. The only thing we know for sure is that time passes much faster in Bandle City. People who visit this place age tremendously by the time they get back. So, how is Vygar tied to this place? In most places of Runeterra, Yordles aren't seen as evil creatures. Only in Piltover they seem to be quite racist towards them. But usually people spread good tales about them. One exception is the sorcerer Vygar. After the Great Darkin War, the world was left in ruins for centuries, and it felt like the only source of hope was coming from the skies above. Naturally, the scarred survivors looked to the heavens, and their study of celestial magic piqued Vygar's interest. But Vygar wouldn't settle with good enough. Seeking to become the master of celestial magic, Vygar joined the mages in the Noxai territories, and even showed them how to draw hope from the patterns in the stars, which is something you may remember from Soraka's course. But while some wanted to rebuild the world, others wanted to conquer it. This is where Mordekaiser's dark reign began. To Mordekaiser, this order of mages had little to no value. They were unskilled at war, and were no match for his battle plane. But Mordekaiser noticed who Vygar truly was. Up until now, no one questioned Vygar's origins, so no one knew who he was. Mordekaiser snatched him up in one iron gauntlet, while the other mages were executed on the spot. Mordekaiser knew Vygar was a Yordle, and he knew that Yordles are crafty when it comes to magic, so he forced Vygar into using his sorceries for a dark cause. To make sure Vygar couldn't escape, Mordekaiser bound him to the physical realm, isolating him from the Bandle City, which was an effective way to torture a Yordle. Over the time he spent in prison, Vygar witnessed how Mordekaiser slowly turned into a nearly immortal being, and Vygar's own magic began to twist in response. His memory slowly faded, and he began to question why he was here. Where did he come from? Did he have a life before this? When Mordekaiser was finally betrayed and his reign ended, Veigar was a different being. The dark magic he was forced to use was now part of him, and when he escaped, he didn't wish to take part in any war that followed. He simply wanted to regain a sense of freedom and safety. But he also chose not to turn away from evil, but to embrace it. He wanted to regain respect the only way he remembered, by dishing out terror. So he called down Fury of the Stars on all those who encountered him, or trapped them in the timeless infinities. And yet, Veigar could not quite find the same success as Mordekaiser. Certainly, the good people of Valoran did learn to fear him to some extent, but Veigar wasn't really good at being evil. Sometimes he would drive bandits from their hideouts, or he would slaughter feral merc wolves around cities. You know, things that end up being quite helpful to the good people of Valoran. The short story that expands Veigar's bio goes deeper into Veigar's normal life, and it shows us that Veigar really feels like a villain from Lazy Town. The story takes us to Veigar's residence, the Bolehem Tower in the Argent Mountains near Demacia. A crowd of angry-looking villagers with spears and torches was marching towards him. Veigar watched them from the top of the tower as they started battering the outer gates, clearly enraged by his villainous ways, demanding justice for the terrible acts he had wrought. A mighty crack signaled that the gates finally gave way, and Veigar hurried down the stairs. The villagers were now in the courtyard. Their leader drew her sword as she slowly advanced forward. After a while, the rest of the farmers clumsily caught up with her. Veigar was watching it all through a gap in the door, while giggling in anticipation. But the woman heard it. Her gaze snapped up. Veigar tried to cover his mouth with his oversized gauntlet, but it was too late. The jig was up. The farmers tripped over themselves as they tried to hide behind the leader. This was exactly the setup Veigar wanted for his grand entrance. He stepped back and with a booming laugh, he heroically blasted through the door with a ball of purple energy. He emerged on top of the stone steps in front of the crowd, knowing exactly how to strike an impressive pose. His head barely cleared the enormous doorframe. His iron boots sent up sparks and thunder with each step. His gauntlet big enough to crush any fool who might challenge him. Unfortunately, the villagers hadn't looked up yet, and holding that intimidating pose this long was starting to feel forced. He let go of the breath he was holding, and shrunk a little. Eventually, the leader pointed her sword in his direction, and the farmers noticed the villain in his full glory. To Veigar's delight, the crowd began shouting and wailing. He even noticed that someone at the back fainted. He then silenced the crowd as he summoned his dark magical cage around them. Not only did he enjoy every step towards the trapped villagers, Veigar also enjoyed the glorious speech he tried to give them, how he saw the fear in their hearts, and how they tried to challenge his dread rule. He was Veigar, great master of evil, the one who commanded magics of the universe. But according to the villagers' shouts, he also summons tiny insects to destroy their crops. Veigar had to blink that accusation away, but another one shouted that he rotted their fruit a week before harvest. Then everyone began to complain, but Veigar made out only the loudest shouts. The majority of them featured soured milk and undersized vegetables. But the more they shouted at him, the more the great master of evil seemed to shrink. Suddenly, the purple cage collapsed as well, but the villagers didn't even notice. They were too busy complaining in his face. Then the leader, whose name was revealed to be Margok, stepped forward. She seemed to be more than twice his height at this point, and she radiated confidence. Veigar hated her. She asked him if he agrees with their accusations, or if he's innocent. To Veigar, this felt like he was slapped in the face. Of course he wasn't innocent. He was the great master of evil, the dread ruler of Argent Mountains. He did deny every stupid superstition, but he also denied innocence. By every definition, he was evil, he reminded them. He burned their fields and slaughtered their warlords, and now he was on a campaign to terrorize the neighboring sorcerers. The sky cracked with thunder and there was a moment of silence. The villagers stared at Veigar differently now. They realized that the warlord he defeated was Vixis the Cruel, a tyrant who bullied the villagers for years. Suddenly, Veigar noticed they were admiring him, and the leader even bowed before him. There was an awkward moment during which the leader didn't know how to properly address Veigar, but she told him that they suddenly came to their senses, and that the people of Bolehem begged the mighty wizard, whose name she might have forgotten, to keep doing what he's doing. That request confused Veigar, and the leader had to clarify that they would return home, and Veigar would continue his reign of terror. Of course, in his absence, the villagers would curse his name, spread tales of vile rampage, and apparently Frank's cousin heard a tale of an evil sorcerer down in Glor, which Veigar might be interested in killing and taking their sorceries. There was a long pause before Veigar realized it was a trick. They wanted Veigar to grant them swift and painless end, but Veigar informed them that they are simply not worth his time. After that, the villagers slowly shuffled back outside, but not before their leader quickly winked at Veigar. And before they left entirely, Vygar quickly asked the leader, when does she think he could talk to Frank's cousin about that other sorcerer? And that was the true and ghastly tale of the Beast of Voloem Tower. A story that is simply really good, but I think it is better when you read it yourselves. It emphasizes on the fact that Vygar is really trying to be evil, and he wants to be evil, but he always comes a little bit too short. Hey, did you know that we have social media and Twitch where we talk about other League facts and stories? And did you know that we have need mugs and shirts too? The links to all of that will be below. And as always, thank you, come again.